We're good. Okay, so welcome. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to call the order of the Monday, July 17th Government Operations Meeting to order. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair Bob Smith is running in traffic right now, but he will be here shortly. Item number 3 is we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Romano, supported by Kraft. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, please vote. Motion to adopt the agenda passes. Item 4, we need a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Drollet, supported by Duge. And once again, please vote for the minutes. Minutes are passed. Public participation. Anyone from the public wish to address this body? Anyone from the public? Third and final time, anyone from the public? Seeing no one from the public, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Go on to item number 6A, the Forgotten Veterans of Michigan study by Ed Sarpolus and the Michigan's Veterans Institute. Welcome, Ed. How are you?
Very good, and pleasure to meet all of you. I'm not going to go down your names, so thank you. Also, I have with me is Mary Engelman. She's the director of Women's Commission of Michigan, and she's also working with me on the project.
I love seeing all the women on the board here.
And you have, and commissioners, you have handouts that Mike put on your desk from Target Insight and also the Michigan Veterans Institute.
Yes.
And I believe from the Veterans Services Department, your name, ma'am, please. Therese Robo, thank you for coming here today.
And I want to say thank you for the opportunity here, because in fact, I spent most of the last 2 weeks at my parents' home in East Detroit, East Point. I'm a native of Macomb. Well, I was born in Detroit, but my mom still lives in East Detroit, or East Point, as we still call it. And so I'm glad to be back here. My dad worked for General Dynamics as well on the line. He was a skilled tradesman. The reason I'm here today is the fact, and at the end of 2014, the state of Michigan approached me. I'm Ed Sarpolus, and you know me as the pollster and newspapers and all that kind of stuff, and I do a lot of research for government entities, and I've done a lot of millage and bond work here in Macomb County for the school districts. He approached me because of the fact that the state had a study done to reach out to women veterans. And there was a needs assessment, try to find out what their needs were, because we talk a lot about med vets, male vets. I know you do a lot of work up here in Michigan, especially Macomb. But when the results came back, the University of Michigan in Grand Valley worked on a project. At that time, they thought there was 47,000 vets. They only could find 2,000 of them. And out of the 2,000, only 425 wished to participate in the study. And he said that was not representative of Michigan's vets. So I reached out Susan Avery at the time, which used to be Susie Heinz, as you knew her when she lived in Macomb County, to find out what's the problem. And I said, well, the difficulty is the fact when I looked through my records from the state, I contacted D.C. They said there's about 76,000 female vets in Michigan. And so the Women's Commission asked to see what I could do. I said, well, I took about a year and a half to find out what it would take to put that type of thing. The governor's office asked me, and I met with the Redmond and the groups of people to actually work with the Women's Commission to see if we could partner to find these women, to address their needs, and put together something long-term, not just a one-shot study, but ongoing, because also, Mary, you want to speak a little bit about the business community?
Well, basically, we know that there's a shortage of skilled trades and also the sciences and the STEM and so on. And so one of the things that we'd like to do, just with men vets, you've seen a lot of companies kind of create programs for that. We want to kind of make certain that the women vets are also a consideration. We're also finding that if you have a male vet and a female vet that goes to college, it is more likely that the male vet will graduate and not the woman. So our whole mission is to try to identify this growing number of heroes that are within our state, and make certain that we're servicing their needs. We know that there's a lot of, we've looked at our hospitals and stuff with our vets, and the state Veterans Association, or the state Veterans Affairs knows that we need to do certain things. I want to make certain that the women are at the table and that our considerations, which are at times different than males, are being addressed. So we are looking, and the governor is expecting, and the legislature, for us to kind of do a study, evaluate what these special needs are, or what kinds of things will help, meet the needs of these women vets that want to get the support of the government, and put those programs into place. We know for a fact that a lot of women vets aren't even identifying themselves as vets because they don't even recognize that they are vets. If they've served, they're vets. And that there's actually federal funding for training and all kinds of other stuff in the GI Bill. So that's kind of where we're coming in, is to make certain that our women are at the table with the male vets.
And the other thing goes that the governor's office would like to see this ongoing, not just one shot and a dynamic, because 1 year we might be studying the mental health of women, basically the homelessness. Kim Worthy's interested in this program. She says it ties into her rape project, because she says a lot of the women that she deals with in Wayne County, some of them are vets. They don't have fathers around. They're targeted. So the goal is, in fact, long-term, to actually set up something permanent where we're actually engaging the women, lobbying for them into the legislating. I know you do a lot for vets here in the county, but something a much more stable thing. What we're looking for is, in fact, we're beginning the fundraising project, and we're looking for partners to help to raise the money for this study and something long-term. And number 3 is the fact that the institute is eventually going to be looking for a home, where to house this institute, to do this ongoing. So our initial goal the first year is to raise about $100,000, but over 5 years, about $1 million. So there's a permanent thing to dealing with women vets. We met with the VA in Michigan. As you know, in politics, I had to get sign off from all the departments. Because everybody wants us. This is a private entity. Though it's nonprofit, we don't want state funds directly. We like to raise it privately. So we're coming to you if you're interested in working with us. We'd just like to work with you and reach out to some of the military complex here in Michigan, especially here in Macomb County. And then if this grows and you want to work with us, we have yet to have a home where we want to permanently have this reside. And personally, because I come from Macomb County, and the fact I like to see it reside here for something long-term. Any questions?
For questions, I just want to make a comment, and something that's bothered me, thank you, over the years, and I posed this question to our Veterans Services Department. We have a millage for our Veterans Services here in Macomb County. We have about 50,000 veterans in Macomb, and the question I posed, I think 6 years ago, was why can't we identify these folks? Your report here says why over 45, and I just got this today, so
Yes.
I'm just sort of reading as much as I can.
That's fine.
Why over 45,000 women veterans don't seek the benefits. When you look at benefits that residents can get in other areas, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, senior citizen services, they go out and seek those benefits at the various government agencies. But for veteran services, it's strange. It's the opposite. It's like, yes, they're there, and maybe they can get some help with some people. Some veterans don't want to be known, don't want to be bothered, and maybe have had a bad experience with the VA. I'm wondering if you could, wouldn't that be the simple way if we had a list
Yes.
of all these people and do a mailing to them or call them, reach out to them? Then we're not just running around
Right.
trying to find out who's who and,
Right.
you know.
And we are working with the Secretary of State there because vets have the ability to identify themselves through that system. I think part of it, and I don't want to disrespect the government, but I believe that when out there talking to a lot of women vets, and this is anecdotal because I can't say that I've talked to everybody, but there is a stigma that comes with you if you're a vet. And there are
Right.
companies that are very fearful, like, oh my gosh, this vet's going to come in and they're going to have all these mental issues and so on. So what we've been doing is working with companies like, not to call them out, but I'm going to, Comerica, Bosch, some other large companies, where they have actually, Consumers Energy created vet programs to kind of like bring them in and train them and then prepare them for the next phase. So it's almost like an apprenticeship kind of thing. So we're seeing more of that, but I just think that we're not doing enough. And so my goal is to work with the government agencies, the federal agencies, and also the state agencies to get this list. But it's, I mean, women, they don't want to self-identify all the time. And, you know, we're not really looking to force them, but I think that if we can create some really productive programs within our state, they'll want to. And if it feels safe. It's just, you know, we know that there's a number of women vets that are homeless. We know that there's a number of women vets that are being human trafficked. I mean, we know all these things, and so we just need to kind of reach out.
As a matter of fact, I've been to almost every state department in Michigan who has some direct contact with vets. They can't supply me a list.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I've been to almost every state agency in Michigan who said they have some touch with the vet. They cannot supply me a list of vets. They said, if you build, and they said, if you do this project, can you provide us a list? I says, yeah. And not only that, I'll do a pin map for you. I'll do a GIS for you, so you can actually load it in your computer. You can visually see them. You can color code them by what their skills are, you know, or that type of thing. So our goal is to be like a clearinghouse. Now, one thing we already worked on, we're dealing with the women, we're going to honor HIPAA, even though it's not medical, but the point being that some of these women want to know how we reach companies, but they want to stay private. So we're trying to build in a system to protect their privacy if that's what they wish. If they want to go public, we'll allow them. We're looking to do this dynamically, but this is their address. That's what I figured out. If I talk to my friends who do this for a living in other states, Ohio has every vet registers. Michigan does not.
Whose responsibility would that be? Which agency does that in Ohio?
Well, basically, it's been established in the 60s. In Ohio, then they've never stopped the program. Every vet who registers gets $1,000.
Huh.
And if you're part of a family, you get $5,000. You get a grant.
Just by registering?
Be part of the system, yes. And we cut that budget back to 60s or 70s. I don't see because that'd be a lot of money to do it now. I've talked to our U.S. Senator Peters. His office is going to work with us on this. I've talked to some of our congressmen. But right now, we're reaching to you. As a matter of fact, you're the first county we've reached out. We reached out to Kim Worthy because of her experience. Matter of fact, if you look at every study done on vets in Michigan, it's almost all done out of Wayne County. You know why? They're the only one that keeps a list.
Interesting.
Okay? So we're coming to you the fact if you'd like to work with us, that's fine. You know what we're looking for. We're all looking for money. We're looking for outreach because you do a lot of work with the military complex. That's why we're here. But our goal is long-term to have something permanent that keeps this issue going. And the off years bring businesses together. We're looking for a business advisory council to guide us in what the work we're doing. So we're reaching out, educating them, women, that type of thing, and work with your community colleges because I know you do a lot with community college. But basically, right now, there's 120 agencies in Michigan working with vets, and they don't talk to each other. Isn't that amazing?
The agencies don't talk with each other, and maybe the veterans don't talk to any of those agencies
That is correct.
as well.
That
right?
is correct.
That would be accurate.
But we're here. We've been working on this for about a year, putting what the logistics are. I've reached out to my friends in D.C. with that type of stuff. I've talked to some of the people who are friends of the VA center in D.C. I even talked to Republicans like Ron Weiser, who's a chair Republican. He says, well, when you get this off the ground, Ed, you know I got access to somebody. I says, well, let's work together. So I'm looking to work with you if you want to. And long term, we're looking for a home for the Institute, and we'd like to have it here if possible.
Before I open it up to questions for some of the commissioners, I have one final question.
Yes.
And that would be a woman veteran. What age are we talking about? I mean, did women serve in the military?
From
Obviously
90 years old on down.
Okay, so it's not like there were more opportunities for women to serve in the last 10 or 20 years
Well, you got to
than,
remember,
say, the Vietnam
for
era.
those who were in the military, and all my uncles were, there were a lot of women in the Second World War.
Okay.
And the Civil War. I'm not saying we're going to go back to the Civil War, but the point being there were nurses.
Right.
Okay? They were part of that whole process. So this is not limited to just people today, but there's a growing number of vets. But a woman says, if I drive a truck, I'm not active duty, so I don't qualify. So you get all these things, or mental health, or that type of things.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll open up for questions. Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you had actually touched on one of my questions, which was, is a bit confusing as a non-veteran, how the government cannot know where the people who serve the government are. How does Wayne County know who their vets are in Wayne County? You mentioned.
It's somebody called John Dingle.
Okay. So John Dingle keeps track personally of...
No. He's the one. I would say he does. What I'm saying, the fact is that John Dingle's in a rare situation because of over the years that he's been servicing, he's gotten money specifically for his district and Wayne County, so there was money set aside to constantly track these people when they come back for the service. In Ohio, you know, they do much, but they do it statewide. And so Wayne County's always worked with that. There's been a lot of different centers. The city of Detroit has its own veteran thing working with homeless vets, the city itself. Okay?
So this wouldn't be something that is your specific issue or anything like that, but doesn't the federal government know who served in the military?
Yes, but you got to understand is you got to pick the phone and ask. Then you got to get the sign-offs, the Privacy Act, like HIPAA I'm talking about. You have to, and someone has to know how to maintain the files. Hey, for example, the Census Bureau developed a file for this state in 2010, like they said there was 40 to 47,000. The state's done nothing with that file. They clean it up to see what's missing. Now it's up to about 76,000. So what we're trying to do, in fact, the state said to us, Governor Larry says, can your organization do this? Yes, if we take on this task, we can maintain this long term. We'll maintain the contacts, we'll work with the cities. For example, I've got contact the city of Westland, okay? Bill Wild's the mayor. His city prosecutor's wife is a brigadier general. Okay, we're working in Kent County with some military people. Right now, we're finding no one's talking to each other. So I'm going around the state doing the work that I thought somebody else was doing. I'm learning about all these things like you are. I talked to a statewide organization that does the exercise and healthy thing for women. He says, well, you mean that women aren't being serviced that come back? I says, yeah. He says, well, if my exercise company, you know, could I get signed? I says, yeah. There's not a direct coordination of things. That's what we're finding.
It seems a little odd. The veterans that I know are all aware they're veterans, and they all heard of the VA.
But it doesn't mean that they sign up or call or put their name on the list.
Right, because they don't want to for whatever reason.
And that's why, remember I mentioned the privacy thing?
Yeah.
If they want to remain private, we'll allow them to be private. But at least we'll know who they are and where they live. But it doesn't mean we'll share their information.
Okay,
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, there was a comment made that there was some women who had served who aren't aware that they qualify as veterans.
There's quite a few of that coming out of the first Iraq War. The first Iraq War, there's a ton of that.
How could they not know they were in the first Iraq War?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why we need to kind of figure out what's going on and what's in their head. I think that, you know, it's going to be extremely critical that we're the PR component and to let them know that there are services that are available. We can't explain it. We just know that that's the case. We've had numerous meetings, and actually some of these women are pretty high execs, and they're like, well, I didn't know that I qualified as a vet.
We've companies
it's
like
surprising.
KMPG. I mean, there is people that don't really know their services. So, but I'm glad you pointed out, I think, this is also, we're not only looking at doing state, we're looking about doing social media. You know, we're talking about keeping this going. This is not just a one-shot deal. The long-term goal, you know, we're realistic. What do we need the first year to get off the ground? Then long-term, we need to raise about $1 million, and then it'll keep self-funding itself. Because, for example, you have ITC here locally. They give like $100,000 a year to think projects like this. But we need help getting it off the ground. That's what I'm saying. And then try to find a home for it permanently.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, before we go on to the next speaker, if I represent Sterling Heights. So
Yes.
if I call up the VA or whoever's responsible in Washington, D.C., hey, I want a list of all the people who are veterans from Sterling Heights. I can't get that info.
You probably have to get some kind of sign-off.
Okay.
Okay, that's the reason. Generally, when I do these projects, I usually become an agent of that entity. I sign some papers of privacy and that type of thing. If we're working with the Secretary of State, I'm going to have to sign on as an agent of that entity and get clearing.
It's just frustrating for me that, no offense, but why do we need help from, you're doing a great job and everything. It should be handled by the VA or by the government to handle those responsibilities.
It's lack of money.
I don't understand.
Matter of fact,
I never will.
you'll find this kind of funny. If we start talking to some of the state agencies, and I'm not going to mention which one of the top agencies says, well, could you lobby for us to get us more money? No, we're helping. We need your help. Their budgets are tied. They're tied. If you got 120 different agencies, and you listen to what's going on, I think everybody's cutting budgets, correct? The VA is not the top of the list. Matter of fact, if you remember last year, they put in the money to make money off license plates. That still hasn't passed the House. Okay?
Very good. Next on the list is Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, folks.
Yes.
Let me be the devil's advocate here, if I may.
That's what we want.
When veterans are discharged, like myself, and I'm sure there's other veterans here, we were given a handbook of what we could or couldn't, or what we are benefits for and against, and they give it to us at our discharge. I mean, it's
Correct.
at the very basic root of when you're out of it. I think one of the commissioners mentioned I mean, we see this on TV every day. Every day, a veteran's getting a new house, or a veteran's getting the kids are going to college and that's great, and I like that. I mean, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So I see in organizations like yours, and I'm saying this is being redundant, and I'm saying this respectfully. Please take it respectfully. The other question I have is, when they provide this information to us, there are the veterans that you could actually call the Veterans Administration and say, hey, listen, I'm a veteran. I don't know if I'm a veteran or not. And just give me your DD 214 and they'll pull it up for you. I just had mine done here within the last 3 or 4 months. While I'm at it, the question I have for you, sir, if I may, I see a W-2 form in here, 1090, is it a W-2? A W-9 form.
Yes. That just shows that we're a legal entity, that you can check with us on the state of Michigan and federally that we do exist as a nonprofit.
Okay, so there is a corporation involved here, yes?
Nonprofit, yes.
Nonprofit corporation. They have a board of directors.
Yes.
Are they compensated?
No.
There's no, this is all volunteer work on your behalf and this young lady next to you. So,
well, there's work being done, okay? If there's work being done in research, there's studies being paid for, there's outreach being paid for, but not the board of directors of the nonprofit are not being paid, no.
so as a director, I take it both of you are directors?
I'm an executive director of the nonprofit. We do have directors, former Representative Lynn John Dahl and Libby Maynard from
Those are all voluntary positions?
Yes.
I think that's outstanding,
Yep.
absolutely
Yes.
outstanding that you'd give time and effort to do this. Again, as I say, I'm being the devil's advocate. I think it's being redundant, but wish you the best.
As a matter of fact, that was what you just said is what I said to the state when they approached me. Okay? Whether you're Republican or Democrat, I talked to Colonel Bergman, congressman from the UP. He says, Ed, that's his biggest problem. He says, people don't sign up after they get out. Okay? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. And then that's why almost every state that's better than us that does this, they're giving that token of $1,000 or $5,000, whatever. Somebody's doing something to get them into the system. Okay? The other thing I tell people, for example, we have a lot of people of color who are minorities. I says, Hispanics don't like going onto the computer because they're afraid somebody's tracking them down. Okay, so they may not sign up on the computer, okay? So there's a lot of different issues. And then the other thing is, the other issue is the fact is that, let's say you were dishonorably discharged. You were still in the vets. You still have issues, health issues.
That's what I feel that the VA administration, if you call them, will guide you accordingly.
I know, but those are the issues that we're being hit by every city I talk to. That's why I talked to the county prosecutor in Wayne County, because she deals with a lot of those guys. I worked with Judge Thomas on the veteran courts. You know, I was a nonprofit supporting her on her movement on the veterans court. Everywhere I go, I'm hearing the same thing. What you said to me is what I said 2 years ago when I would talk to all these different agencies. How can this be? He said, it's not happening.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to clarify something in light of Commissioner Gillette's question. I have a lot of vets in my family, and female vets as well. And it isn't that those serving in the first Gulf War didn't know they were vets. It's that at that time, the services provided for vets was drastically different. If you didn't do 15 years or 20 years. My husband got out at 10, and our understanding was we didn't have anything. That's changed over the years. So a lot of these vets from that era, it's not that they don't think they didn't serve, it's that what was considered a vet for services at that time was different than today. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Because I said to my husband, we're not going to have health care after retirement, and he said, speak for yourself. I'm going to, because we get these notices from the federal government. So we do know the federal government, except for those that are homeless, they're very good at tracking, because we've gotten notices over the years, no matter where we went, of changes that have occurred. So I'd like, first of all, could you explain what the HIPAA issue is with regard to having a list?
The bottom line, I'm saying the privacy is not the fact that it applies, that we're going to protect people's privacy, okay? If they want to talk with us and go what their problem, what their issues are, we're going to put them part of the study, okay? If they want to have access to the businesses, but they don't want people to know what their names are, but except through confidential access, we were going to protect their privacy if that's what they wish.
Okay, but with respect to your getting a list, if you don't intend to release it, you're not interfering with their privacy.
No, but what I'm saying, in fact, I'll be building lists for the state and those entities that need it, okay? All right?
Okay. So, and it occurs to me there'd be there'd be two avenues. The first is at the state level. I mean, Secretary of State, when you go in to get driver's license, when you're
That's
registered
who we've
to vote.
talked to, and they said they can't give us a complete list. They don't have it.
So, and if you were to do it locally at the county level, it would be two entities. It would be the clerk's office, and it would be our Veterans Department.
Well,
I've
already reached out to D.C. I've worked with U.S. Senator Barry Peters' office. We'll be working with the VA in D.C. We're trying to see what the HIPAA is when it gets sort of centralized list. We've already been doing the reach. That's why we talked to the congressman.
Yeah, because, and there are people that sign up. I don't know if anybody, well, most of them are lifers, so they've got all kinds of benefits, but the ones that aren't, I don't know of anybody in my family that's actually reached out, my husband included, and brothers included, that have actually reached out and notified anybody of their existence anywhere because they don't feel that they need services, or in some cases, don't feel that anybody should get services from the federal
my father-in-law
government.
is 92 years old, and I got a call today. Who do I talk to about my VA stuff? And he's from the Second World War.
Yeah.
Some of these things just happen. I'm not going to say that many don't do this. I'm not saying that it's everybody, but there's a large portion of them
Yes.
are not participating, and there's a big hole. Secondly, not everybody's the 120 agencies in Michigan are not talking to each other, or a merging list.
Yeah.
So every agency I've talked to says, well, once you get this bill, can we all have it that's legally supposed to? I said, yes. Okay, we talked to the Secretary of State.
Okay, and then finally, with respect to that, our Director of Veterans Affairs has said that like virtually 98% of those coming out today are getting some sort of benefit, which was absolutely shocking to me. That indicates to me that those that are coming out today, she's got 98% of that.
The problem is, we got all those people who before this. We still got people that are alive, they're going to be alive for a long time, who have not.
Yeah, I don't think there was the reach out before. So there is I did want everybody to know it's not they're walking around not knowing they were a vet.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Commissioner.
the other thing, our goal is the fact is to also help these women connect with the business community, what the needs are, start to interface more, get more unification.
Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm looking at your like sponsorship program.
Yes.
You know, we have the platinum partner, the gold partner, the bronze sponsor.
Yes.
Who are you targeting? Presumably us, but who else are you targeting with regard to this?
The point being, we're going to be reaching out to corporations. A lot of this is designed for corporations, so if they want signage, you know, a lot of people want signage. We have to have signage set up, okay? Now, when we talk to Wayne County, Kim Worthy's office, she says, I don't need signage, okay? She says, I'll try to help you find money in Wayne County, okay? And I'll try to commission. She says, but that's just when we're talking to corporations.
Okay.
And the other thing, the reason, the fact is, if let's say the other thing we want to do, if you've all worked in politics and businesses, we don't want everybody to be on our advisory board. So we want those who give the most to be part of our advisory board. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I see that it's structured that way. If you give $100,000 and you get 2 corporate seats on your advisory board, I understand that. It looks a little bit like a Kickstarter program in some ways. You know, right, exactly. The next question I have, and I know you've touched upon it on a lot of the answers to the questions to the different commissioners, but you know, what is going to be your methodology here for the study? I'm not exactly clear.
Well, let me explain. First of all, I'll be working with my contacts in D.C. to get as the largest list as I could that's available to me legally. Okay.
And not to cut you off, you're going to be able to do that because you can sign as an agent and get around the privacy things. Okay.
Okay.
Who gives you the authority to sign as an agent?
The person that I'm requesting the list from.
And who would that be?
Secretary of State's the Secretary of State's office.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Does that make sense to you?
That made it a little bit clearer for me. Okay.
Okay.
Go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And secondly is the fact some of it will be done by phone, where I have phone numbers. Some will be interfacing face-to-face. I'll do a little bit like the Census Bureau, for example, in Detroit. They'll provide me where the veterans or homeless people gather. This is a dynamic study. It's not going to be a one-shot deal. This will be an ongoing project. I talked to a couple of the Jewish community in Oakland County. Said, well, some Orthodox Jews don't want to buy on the phone. Well, can we bring these women in a room? She says, yes, they would love that, okay? So this is something wherever we need to go, we're going to do, because this finding them is one thing, but number two is getting at what their needs are. The needs in the Upper Peninsula are much different than people in an urban core, that type of thing. So this is not a dynamic thing. This is why we said this is not just a one-shot deal. This is an over a period of time, and this is to be ongoing. Now, one year we might focus on mental health, and one might home, but the initial study will be a generic one covering as many issues. It might be an 18 to 20-minute survey the first, whether it's face-to-face or by phone or in groups where appropriate.
And I would assume as part of your methodology, you have to, like you say, you have to identify who these folks are.
Yes.
So you're talking about sharing lists to different governmental agencies.
Yes.
When would you be willing to share the list? Not at the end of the study, but potentially as you're in the first stage after identification?
I have to tend on the people who provide me lists. I'll have to get their permission to do some of this stuff. Okay. I do know that every agency I've talked to, they says, well, we don't have a master list.
Right.
The new Michigan Veteran Association that's set up by the governor, the master agency, they said, well, when you're done, can we have it? I said, well, wait a minute.
And I get that. And it would seem like if we're all working on the same page, since you have this authority from the Secretary of State to be able to get around the privacy laws and get the best list possible
Yes.
from the federal government, and then once you get that list, you're going to go out and do your methodology
Yes.
and determining
The
their needs.
representative sample,
Right.
you know.
It would seem to me then, even if you were to share those lists to even, let's say, our county agency and other ones as well, that then maybe they could come on board and help you to further identify
Correct.
people. It's just it's a suggestion. And
It's part of that, but I don't want to jump the gun until I get permission.
I get that. But, okay, thank you. I got a little bit more insight in how I think you're going to do it.
Yep.
Thanks again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Don Brown. Okay, pass. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
I look at this, I'm trying to stand up and get a good grasp on it. Our veterans group here, our committee, one of the things they struggle with is trying to contact these veterans to let them know
Correct.
the benefits that they have.
Yep.
And I, after listening, can see where women veterans may not know of all the benefits, obviously, of what they have coming towards them. With that said, it's puzzling because our current group is trying all different types of things, and from ads to everything they can do to outreach and do this. And I look at all the other government agencies, they all kind of start something and they do it. So you achieve and you get a list, and all of a sudden you have a list. Well, that list is good for a period of time because it changes daily.
That's why I said this is dynamic.
So the thing is that I haven't seen anybody have the ability to do what you're looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the answer for you. I'm just,
Well, let me share something with you. Is I maintain a list over the years of homeschooled kids. There is no sellable list. I was hired by Michigan State years ago to start building that list, okay? Now I'm funded, or my extra, I used to be Epic MRA, now at the web. The funds continue from then to do that, okay? It's an ongoing thing, okay? I used to do this for unions, okay, when they're trying to make track of members type of thing. The key thing is, I said dynamic. That's why I said this is not a one-shot deal. This is an ongoing thing. And I'm glad your question about whether we're a nonprofit or paid, that type of thing. No, our goal is, in fact, to keep the group small, where I can get volunteers to do it, but it's keeping it going. And build a trust factor. If there's a 120 agency, somebody's going to touch these people once in a while. So if I maintain contact with all these agencies, and I'm helping them, and they're helping me, and I have one who says, well, can you provide us with the PIN map of the vets in my area? Well, sure. What are their ages? That I can do. For example, if you need to start a program for me, here's all the vets of this age. I do this for hospitals off their DRG files. For example, did you know that men of a certain illness all tend to live in the same neighborhood? So people tend, your illness is the methodology. So that's the goal, okay? But it's not to look to just do it one time. It's the goal. That's the reason I'm here, because that's the reason we were asked not to put it into the private sector, not into the public sector. I mean, the tax dollars, because that's the first thing they'll cut in the budget. So our goal is to get something permanent through a fundraising with a business advisory group that's going to be low cost and keep it going, and then businesses get a benefit out of it. If they know there'll be access, what they're looking for employees or partial trainees, we can supply them, we can engage them.
okay. And you know what? It's a genuine thing you're doing, and it actually, it makes sense to me.
But it's hard, it's not going to be easy.
No, and I agree with you. And that's why I kind of go back to our Veterans Committee and what they're trying to achieve. And then you mentioned something about the state of Ohio, where everybody has to register.
Well, they don't have to, but they're rewarded if
Okay.
they do.
Well, it comes down to maybe in the state of Michigan, this is something, you're trying to do good, and I get it, and I want to help you any way I can, but it comes down to maybe should be lobbied up at the state, and this should be a mandatory thing that they have to register when they come back. Now, you say yes, I don't even know if I registered when I came back. But if there was something to get your license, or whatever it is, you have to do this on your income tax or whatever it may be, and make it a law here in the state.
Every agency.
Because not just the women that
Yes,
you're
it's
looking to
also
take
the
care
men.
of.
Right.
It's the men, it's everybody who served.
Well,
And,
every agency that I talked to asked, could you end up lobbying for us?
well, I'm talking about lobbying to pass a law.
I know what you're saying.
Do you know what I'm saying? To pass a law and not to make your job fruitless. It's the point of, boy, if you can get that law passed, you're not only going to help the women, you're going to help everybody. But then you can still do your niche of supporting the women.
Yep.
And I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to discourage you. But this is a little bit bigger, you know, as we keep looking at how many times have we talked about helping our veterans group, and we brainstormed and everything we could do to assist. And, you know, we didn't come up with that idea yet to really say, here's what you got, go do it. And I know you try different things all the time.
Well, the state has a panel like you folks at the state trying to advise them, and they're still struggling what to do. So the bottom line, the fact, since we're in the private sector, and this is what I do for a living, this is all we're going to be working on. This is our project, and this is the answer to your
I'm not
question.
discouraging it, and I'm encouraging you, but this is, again, I look a little bit bigger, that this should almost be a mandated law. And, you know, it helps you get the information you're looking for, and our veterans group the opportunity to have the information that they're looking for. So I don't know, those.
No, as
just
a matter
my
of fact, that might be one of our top recommendations at the end of the first study, would be a recommendation based on our input from you. Because remember, it's input from not everybody we talk to, not just the vets. That could be a recommendation that this would be a requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other speakers on this? Seeing none, we need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Leonetti, supported by Romano. Please vote. And Ed and Mary, thank you very much
My pleasure.
for coming here today, and we look at partnering up and helping out in any way we can.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. And any comments, any things like, please give us a call.
Thank you. Okay,
If anyone can build a list, it'll be Ed, there, no doubt about that.
Yes. I was young and dating too.
Okay, Commissioners, I would like to just suspend the rules and move to closed session for pending litigation because Scott is on a time schedule here. So without objection, we do need a motion for that to go into executive session. We do not? We do need a so we need a motion and a vote moved by Kraft, supported by Leonetti, and just please vote to go into closed session for pending litigation. Thank you, Commissioners. Okay, Commissioners, we're back in regular session. We're back to item number 7, department recommendations, A and B. I'll let Chair Smith talk about these two items, if that's okay, Bob?
Yep, that's fine. First, I think all of you had a chance to read the proposal that I'm doing with the Citizens Advisory Council. I've been thinking about this. I've talked with Patty about it for actually over a year about doing something like this. A lot of the larger communities and smaller communities, Oakland County, Kent County, they all have this type of an advisory board to help them out with, just like we said, senior issues that maybe we're missing here in the county. Obviously, they don't have any, they wouldn't have any direct authority over the senior services department or anything else, but simply we could use them as a tool to make recommendations to us and possibly to the executive's office and this Department of Senior Services. That being said, we kind of modeled most of the bylaws from Oakland counties with tweaking some things, so we're not reinventing the wheel here. I've also spoke with Rhonda Powell, who's now the head of all of the Health and Human Services. Spoke to her about this issue. She was very much in favor of it. She thought it was a great idea. She actually gave me some ideas on some other people to talk to out in Oakland County that have some other big senior organizations that really help them out with their legislation in Lansing and things like that. I spoke with Deputy Executive Delden this morning just to notify him that we were looking at doing something like this so that they didn't get taken off guard and think that we're trying to take over the county again. Not that he would think that, but I wanted to make sure that he knew that, coming into this, that we understood that they were not an authoritative body when we do this over anybody.
Just a group of seniors that reflects the views of the Board of Commissioners.
Exactly, and can be utilized by Senior Services and Rhonda at any time to help their departments, similar to what we kind of advocated for the veterans, their advisory board of all those great applicants that were not getting chosen for their board. They've utilized them now as an advisory board to handle tasks that they just don't have the time or resources to handle. So that being said, we're looking for any input on this, or I'm looking for any input on this, and I know a few of you have called and asked some questions about it. I know Commissioner Kraft was wondering where we got the 60 years of age from. That comes from the Area Agency on Aging's threshold number for this type of committee. Commissioner Kleinfeld had brought up a few good points that we're all, we're going to miss something in here, so that's any questions, any suggestions that anybody might have. I'd be willing to take them in, and if everybody agrees with them, put them into this so that it works for all of us, and hopefully get moving on this. I do not have to have, I'd like to do it by Thursday. I know you guys have just seen it recently. I'm not pushing it. If we want to think about it, if we want to take another, month to work on this, it's been in my head for a while, so we don't have to jump on it. I don't want anyone to feel pressured on this particular topic that we have to make our decision, but it seems like it's a pretty clear and nice, it's just another resource for us for when things come up. So I'll be happy to take any questions.
So Commissioner Kraft, questions. I'm looking on the list here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I wanted to thank the board staff. I had a few questions and I did get some answers. There was one technicality, kind of a redundancy that I found in there. Article 2, Section 8 is exactly the same.
We've got rid of the one from the first article and just kept it in the second. But thank you. Yes,
great. Thank you, Chair.
And let me tell you, how about this? Before we add to all the questions, let me tell you a few of the things that we've changed already in case these are part of your questions. We're adding a mandate that they'll submit a quarterly report to us, and then also at least report to the board twice a year. We have in there that they can report to us anytime they feel necessary, anytime that we actually call upon them to report, but at least, if nothing else, mandatory 2 times reporting to the year and quarterly written reports. We talked about it today about adding a commissioner liaison, so that not necessarily a commissioner on the voting board, but someone that would be notified and in attendance at all the meetings and kind of would be our go-between for all the times in between reporting, just so we would have an idea of what was going on, and all the while still leaving 4 open spots so that we can cherry pick community leaders that would help out with this board as aside from the 13 commissioners picks for chair or for committee people. And also, we're kind of working on this, but the removal process, just a general, how do you remove someone for, misconduct or missing so many meetings? And we're looking at maybe 3 meetings or 30% of the meetings per year or something would be cause for it, but we haven't quite come up with the wording on who, how that vote comes up, but I'm sure it'd be something similar to what we have, here or on, different boards that are out there. So I don't think that would be hard. So that being said, please continue with the questions, Commissioner.
Questions, can I just tell them my 2 changes so that they don't ask on those as well?
Go ahead, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Okay. Thank you. They're very quick. With regard to Article 2 under Functions, Section 6, a reference to the Open Meetings Act, it applies to both the council and ad hoc committees. And then Article 3, Section 5, it says missing 3 meetings without an excuse will be cause for dismissal. And I said 3 meetings in a year, 3 meetings in a term. What does that mean? And he's going to clarify that. Those are my only ones. Thank you.
And on that note, we did, I think I looked at what you had mentioned since you walked up here, and Article 5, Section 3, the last thing says the council shall operate according to the State Open Meetings Act. I think we just add the council and any ad hoc committees formed shall act according to Open Meetings Act. I think that would cover everything on it.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thanks. Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, just two quick questions. Is where will the meetings be held?
I would imagine that we would yeah, Armada, sorry.
And
Well,
yet-
you know, Commissioner Sauger, I would certainly offer our facilities for them, but I would also encourage them to try to hold their meetings maybe at some outlying locations when possible, although they're going to be using the board sync program, so it might be difficult at times to do some of those meetings, but
Okay.
go ahead.
Is there any compensation for this committee?
At this point, the board has, in their rules, I think in their ordinance, that we do not offer stipends or anything unless it's state mandated to any committees. I have to look into that farther, but I think our own rules preclude us from offering any monetary, without changing our own rules.
Well, we better change them. You're going to get volunteers again. You got them coming from all over the county.
Right.
I'm just telling you.
I understand, and that's something to be looked into, and that's something that we can actually look into. It doesn't necessarily have to come with this. We can always adopt and change some of this or add things to it if that rule changes, if we decide that that's something that we now want to look at. I believe it was before I was even here that we changed that. It might have had something to do with the downturn in the economy or things like that. So maybe that's something we look into. Yep.
Commissioner Brown?
Well, the advisory council is going to look for something they're going to want something done. Right? They're going to look for something to, they're going to say, just what, look around the county, everything's great. They say, well, the county needs more of this and more of that. What's our ability to control what they do in terms of recommendations? I mean, are they just to advise, can we preclude them from making any official recommendations saying, Macomb, we don't want somebody to turn against us, so by that we create all of a sudden is doing something that's maybe contradictory to what we want them to do.
Well,
like perhaps, like say, advocating a senior citizen millage. That would be something would be
well, they would advocate
to
things
some be a
to
negative
us.
thing.
My sense of this whole thing is they're created by us to advise the board. I mean, that's the rules, and that's what we're looking at, is they advise us on different things that, you know, they may come up with, but we have some direction for them. I don't have my list here right now, and I'm going to grab
I mean,
that.
it's a matter of semantics maybe almost, but.
No, I understand.
I like the idea. I think this is a great idea. I
And Don,
really do, but I just want to make sure that we don't
I agree.
lose control of something and, that, you know, potentially could, because obviously if most of them are going to become people that recommendations from us. I mean, they're going to be
Sure.
commissioners' recommendations, but, you know.
Well, I understand, but I think that
I'm
a
often in
senior
the minority,
millage-
you know, so I don't want to be, you know.
Let's go
create
on to
something
the
that's-
far end of it in the senior millage. I mean, that would be something that if they came back and said, we think that this is something that, you know, you guys should look at, they should come to us, and then it's our debate, right, to do
Yeah.
something like that. I don't, maybe we need to look at how they present to us so that it doesn't come in as a full-blown recommendation that we just, you know, go the other way on.
We have many commissions that operate similar. I mean, like the pension board, they make, they don't dictate, but they make recommendations and we decide. It's the same way, I guess. But I think that's really it's my only concern. Otherwise, I think it's a great thing, and I haven't read articles. I haven't looked at all the articles in detail, but I support what you're doing, I think.
Thanks.
Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you. I like it all. Just you answered a couple of the questions. One of them, though, where you do mention, where Commissioner Brown was talking about, it does say that the advisory council is, its mandates from the Board of Commissioners, its authority is limited to an advisory capacity, comma, and the council will not become involved with administrative issues or disputes. When we say limited to advisory capacity, should we take the comma out and add a word to the Board of Commissioners? You know what I'm saying? Advisory capacity to the board or for the Board of Commissioners, however you want to word it, so that they know that anything that they do, they have to present it to the Board of Commissioners. Maybe it's not needed, but.
Right, it's certainly not going to hurt, I think, but it's probably not needed because in the first part it says to, you know, to advise the council to efficiently conduct the businesses of the commission, which is us. So they would come to us. I don't have a problem with adding
No, I'm not saying you
words
need
that
to. I
might.
just wanted to throw that thought in there. And then
And Crystal's taken all these notes, by the
I'm
way.
figuring
so
that they would be
we'll-
meeting during the day here. And obviously an employee would have to be here to do the minutes for them.
Right.
Okay, I'm just in posting it, you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to long-term saying, okay, your office staff is gonna have to post the meetings, do the minutes.
Right.
Prepare the agendas. Okay, I'm just trying to get it all together.
Right.
And then, how often do you anticipate them to have meetings?
We were looking at once a month, basically, to start off
So
with.
12 meetings or quarterly? That's what I was asking, you
Yeah.
know, what, and I know it's all
I think
new.
they can, it is all new, and I think a lot of that can be floating if they get going on things and they find that once every other month, or if they start getting into something where they see twice a month. I think we kind of leave a little bit of that to the discretion of the board itself when they get going. I mean, obviously, we'll have input in it. Every one of us is going to bring at least one person into this. So I'm hoping that we bring someone into this that has, some a reason and some common sense, and actually will listen to some of our input on the things that we would want, on here.
Okay,
So-
and then into the bylaws, though, it goes into, are they gonna create a set of bylaws with their schedule and what they want for the board to approve, the election of officers once a year? Yeah, I know you mentioned the offices, but as far as their timeliness, you know what I'm saying, this is the whole,
Yeah, their own little set of bylaws
and
that
then
would
they
be
would send it to
subs-
us
yes.
for us to adopt it for that year, whatever it is.
I was thinking about that. I think that that's something certainly worth looking into. Whether they have to or not, we'll look into it and see whether it's advisable. I mean, how deep we need to get into it with that. We will talk to some of our attorney commissioners and Scott Smith too about this. He's been involved a little bit in this also, so we'll talk to him about the need for something like that. And if there is a need, we do it, right?
Budget, you need to,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to think,
Right.
Okay, that's it.
I like it.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Just very quickly, I think the idea of them going off location to senior centers and things is a wonderful idea. So I hope we give them the freedom to have their recording secretary take minutes in those situations, and that they not be tied to board sync and our employees.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers.
Next one.
I'm sorry?
Want to just go to?
Yeah, we'll go to the next item, number 7B, which is the amending of the commissioner meeting schedule.
And that is simply, we had two things. Next, at the end of this month, we had a reserve finance and a reserve full board that I don't think that at this point we have anything pressing that needs to get on these meetings, especially since we're going to start seeing some meetings, really start getting cramped in the next few months. Also in August, we had looked at, and I've discussed with, somehow we had a little miscommunication. Steve had told us that he was able to present on the 17th, the budget. He's not going to be able to present it until the 23rd. Therefore, I would recommend that we get rid of our finance and full board and run finance over to the 23rd, and just get rid of the full board at that point, since we're going to have one on the 31st.
Any questions, commissioners, on that?
I need a motion for
Well,
both.
let's get a motion for both items A and B. Motion moved by Romano, supported by Carabelli. Please vote, commissioners, as soon as that comes up. Thank you, Mike. Okay, item passes. Item number 8, we need a motion to forward this. It's a declaration, August 2017, United Way for Southeastern Michigan Centennial Day.
Right, August 19th.
We need a motion by that, moved and supported by
They do plan on.
Sauger.
Oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They do. They plan on coming in.
Yeah, they're coming on
presenting
Thursday. Dr. Herman Gray's going to come and make, to talk about that. Okay, seeing no speakers on this, please vote, commissioners.
Still looking for a motion.
Well, that was Brown, and who supported that? Sauger did. Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure.
That passes. Item number 9 are just 2 correspondence. One, 9A is SEMCOG Bloc Caucus, Bloc, BLOC, caucus election results. Chair Carabelli is there. And item number B is simply a resolution that was supported by Oakland County supporting Selfridge as a base for the F-35 fighters. So we need a motion for the receive and file for these two items. Moved by Jolette, supported by Kleinfeld. Please vote on this item, Commissioners. Thank you. Item number 10, new business. We'll start with Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. Per request of Commissioner Leonetti, the law firm of, a couple of the attorneys from Kitch are coming, and I missed beginning if anyone mentioned this, but they are coming to our Wednesday meeting to give us a public update of the lawsuit and, the reasons behind why we're filing to leave, to, have this heard by the Supreme Court. I thought it was a good idea, both for that reason, so that we understood it, but also we can maybe, we're expecting that group again to come here and basically say the same thing, and a lot of those are really, I think the facts are way off on what they're presenting, and this gives us a little opportunity to hear the facts before we hear the non-facts. So they will be here on Wednesday, so I'm happy about that. I think we're going to move them to be for public participation also, so that we get that.
Good idea.
That's what we'd like to do anyway, so I mean, I don't know if anyone spoke to you about it, but probably a good idea. Since they could speak at first public participation, since this will be on the agenda, they will be able to speak at both on this. But also, just a thought, and I think that we could get through our closed session a lot faster if we could tell John to go under the assumption that everybody read the synopsis of the case, so he doesn't sit there and read everything that we basically had in our packet to read again. So if everyone agrees that they are at least reading these through, then we just mark our questions for him so he doesn't have to read everything that we already read. I think that would be, I would like to make that suggestion based on everybody's head nodding. I think that that's the suggestion I'm going to make. Well, it'll still be in the agenda. It'll be just. Yeah.
We haven't been getting emailed separately like we used to.
Okay.
So she's right. The first time we saw him was when we sat down.
Oh, that's fine. So then I'll make sure that we get this in advance. If I find out that we didn't get it in advance, I'll have them go through everything again. But if we had it. Okay.
It's a separate email. They don't do it with the agenda.
So I don't know the details of that. I'm sure that that's not I know it's happened before. Okay. So it did go out, though? It did not get out?
It went out to Board Sync, so if you access your agenda using Board Sync, then you would have been able to access it. If you access it through the public portal, you would not be able to access it.
I was on Board Sync as well.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll figure that out and make sure that it works. But, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it would save a lot of time. But if you can't get on it in Board Sync, please call. If something's going wrong, call and let them know, because I mean, sometimes it might just be assumed that they did it right, everything went right, but something went screwy with the system and you can't get it. So let them know if you're trying to click on something or if you don't see something you think you should have. Because we all know how responsive our staff is to any inquiries we have.
Okay, any other new
That's it
business,
for me.
Commissioner
Thank
Kleinfeld?
Okay, very quickly, I am going to the NACO conference in Columbus this weekend. I did not know that I was going to it until last week. So, again, per our ethics board, Bob, so just you need to know this. Because of the way our ethics policy is written, which is not written correctly, I technically need the board's approval to have MAC pay for me to travel to NACO. That wasn't the intent of what we did, but that's what ended up doing. So that has to take place this Thursday because I'm leaving on Friday. Okay? And I do want to eventually correct that. We don't even vote on the NACO bill, and we don't vote on the SEMCOG bill. That was meant for if we got a contractor, we're paying $1 million to do renovations, that they're not flying us to Disney World. That's what the intent of that was. So that, okay. And then I would also eventually, once we get through budget, Commissioner Myjack, I'd really like to take a look at our board rules for a couple of reasons. Mark brought up one today. We limit the first hearing of the public to agenda items only. We do not hold to that, especially when, like, one of our directors comes up here. We don't tell them to sit down, that they can't do that. And for consistency, I'd just like to take a look at those again. I have a couple things. I have that. I have the time of the hearing of the public. 10 minutes for a meeting is a lot, and most entities don't do that. And we vote on everything 3 times, and that's something I'd eventually like to work on. So after budget, when things slow down a little bit, I'd like Commissioner Myjack to consider doing that. And then the other thing is the getting that out of the ethics ordinance, because if one of us ends up on NACO, you know, that's expected by being part of that organization. So. And the last thing is, first of all, congratulations, Commissioner Carabelli, for being elected to those positions, and thank you for taking an active role in SEMCOG for us. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Sauger, new business.
Okay, what I want to say is I hope every commissioner listens close, because it's coming up Wednesday, and it pertains to all of us. This group that's coming up Wednesday, you know, I worked with all of them. It's a small group, and I don't support them. George Brumbach, who is the head of the County Retirees Association, they don't support them. These guys are just on their own. And I got a call from Al Bendit, who worked with me on the Sheriff's Department. He worked there 28 years. He called me to let you people know that he has Blue Cross from the county, the best insurance you could possibly get. He has cancer, and he's been treated for the last 3 years. And so far, he's got everything documented. It's cost Blue Cross over $1 million for all the services he's had done, including the medevacs and whatnot. And out of his own pocket, it's cost a little over $200. So what I'm trying to tell you, get in your head, what they say up here is not true. The county is not going to take away the Blue Cross from anybody, because the county executive has the Blue Cross. His dad has the Blue Cross. They're not taking it away. And what the intention of all of that is to cover the county in case Blue Cross ever went out of business. That's basically what it is. And they're not going to, but so what they have to say and gripe and moan and bitch about, just let it go, and believe me, let it go in one ear and out the other. I worked with every one of them, and I don't support not a thing they're saying, but I can show it here on the board. But take that to heart about this Al Bendit with his cancer. He's being treated well, and also like George Brumbach, I saw him last Friday. He says, Marv, our group does not support him, and they've got quite a few people in the county. So just keep that in your mind when they come up here Wednesday. Thank you.
Thanks, Marv. Any other new business? Carabelli?
Real quick, a situation happened at one of the Macomb Orchard trail meetings that I was at a couple of weeks ago that will be coming here to the Board of Commissioners.
You turn on your speaker so we all hear you, Mr.
And a situation at the Macomb Orchard Trail Committee meeting came up that will be coming here to the Board of Commissioners, I'm guessing pretty soon. The Great Lakes Water Authority decided that they have to replace a 102-inch main with a 96-inch main. The area that they're going through, 24 Mile and DeQuinter and Shelby Township, this will be the 6th time that area has been torn up in, I think, 8 years, from Sunoco Gas, M-Bridge, you know, and the whole thing. Shelby Township just put a brand new bike path trail, just finished it last weekend, and that's going to have to get torn up. Anyways, they're talking about coming down the Macomb Orchard Trail and utilizing this. Well, the county owns the trail, and the permission's going to end up coming from this board. The bad news is this little teeny committee that I sat on, they're making the presentation, and I got out and I talked to Bob. He didn't hear anything. I talked to Candace. She didn't hear anything. I talked to executive. No one knows nothing about this. Well, it's an emergency situation, and they're just going around right away. Well, the only reason I found out is because they want to use part of the trail. So there is a meeting coming up next month. When I find out, now it doesn't just involve Shelby, it's going to be everything to the north. So it's going to go, I think it's part of Shelby, Macomb, Romeo, Bruce, all the way up through to Port Huron. They're replacing this entire main. I should say we are, it's our tax dollars with the Great Lakes Water Authority. So I just wanted to let you know this will be coming up to us for approval of that, them using the trail.
Go ahead.
Commissioner, I'd be interested to know who made that presentation, or maybe to our staff, because I want to bring them into our infrastructure. I'd be curious to know a little bit more about that and see how much we're going to hold them up for.
A great idea. Grant Central from the Great Lakes Water Authority, and I'll get the other information. It was actually an engineer that used to work at the Drain Commission's office. He left like 4 years ago. You guys would probably know him, but I'll get the name and get it on. He's now working for the Great Lakes Water Authority as an engineer, company that they hired to do this work.
Very good. Thank you for letting us know. See, emergency, my.
Last on the new business, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Jim, thanks a lot for that, and your involvement and everybody's involvement in all these little committees around that let us know what's going on really helps a lot. And also, congratulations on the SEMCOG appointments or elections, because I know you've already done great things with some of that money that's you've helped bring into the county for projects. I think you're doing a great job with that. But just a real quick touch on Commissioner Kleinfeld's talking about the ethics and some of the things that we need to change. I did bring that up recently, that we are in the midst of this right now. I'd like to get all of this. So if you wouldn't mind giving me, a little bit of a written, what we want changed in what sections and different. So if you have an idea, please take a look at this ethics board. It's all of ours, and I know it's going to happen. Some of us are going to read it right at the last day when everybody's made their change and go, well, what about this? I want to change this, and we're going to, drag it on farther. So take a look at it. You may not have anything you want changed. We've already got some response from different departments on some things too. So I figured we would, and I figured we would have some things internally that we need to straighten out, just for purposes of what you said. Some of them are meant to do one thing, but they do something completely different. So please take a look at that and get it something to myself or Patty or the staff on potential areas that you'd like to see addressed. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Seeing no one else from new business, we'll go into public participation. No one from the public here. We need to go into item 13. I'll take a motion for all those A through E. Moved by Leonetti, supported by Romano. And please vote. And that passes, commissioners, and we are adjourned. Have a good afternoon.
Need a motion for adjournment?
Nope. You need these all back.
Oh, yeah, you need the confidential things back.